All right, Mr. D, soil testing. You know what we like to say, why guess? Soil test.
Yeah, don't guess soil test.
Don't
That's right.
guess soil
That's right. It's a very, very simple thing to do that can keep you from getting into a lot of trouble.
Agreed.
And if you have too much of a nutrient, you can't take it out of the soil. If you have too little, you can always add. So I would strongly suggest that you, at least every 3 years, that you soil test any area where you might think you're going to put fertilizer out. And it's a very, very simple process. If you're lucky enough to have a soil probe like Chris Cooper has, and this is a fine soil probe right here. I wish I had a soil probe like this. Mine is about that short, and it doesn't have one of these on it, and you just have to push it into the ground. But if you're lucky enough to have a soil probe that's really good, and a soil sample should consist of a minimum of 10 cores or 10 different sites, and just go in a zigzag pattern across your lawn or across your garden, and sample down to a depth of 6 inches. And if you're not real sure, before you do any of this, you need to go by the extension office and pick you up a soil test kit. And we have one right here. And if you're not real sure, if you can't remember everything I've said, if you look on the back of the box, the soil test box, it tells you, number one, collect portions or cores from, this says 18 to 20 locations. If it's an acre, up to 10 locations in an acre. And to a depth of 6 inches, and you put the samples in a bucket. But before I leave the instrument to take the soil samples, if you're not lucky enough to have a soil probe like Chris Cooper, or like I have the little short one, the short one's better than this. Most folks have a shovel, and if you have a shovel, you can use a shovel and push it down into the ground 6 or 7 inches, lean it over, and then take a spoon and go down to a depth of 6 inches. And if you need a ruler to measure, have a ruler, go down to a depth of 6 inches and scrape up that cut and put it in a bucket. And do that until you have at least half a cup of soil. You're probably going to need more. And like I said, 10 different locations from similar soil types. If you know that you have a couple of different soil types, if you have a loamy soil in one area, and then you have some clay, some old gumbo clay, Booker, like me and you used to farm with, in another area, well, that needs to be a different sample, and so you need to sample that separately and let it have its own sample. But do at least, like I said, at least 10 to 20, and with a spoon, you're going to need 20 or 30 to get a cup of soil or half a cup of soil. But lay that out on a paper plate or a newspaper or something and let it dry, because if it's wet and damp, it is expensive to mail because you're paying by the weight. And also, if it's wet and damp, it can interfere, it may cause this box to break halfway between here and Nashville, where the soil test lab is, and you don't want that to happen. But let it dry out, and then after it dries out, put it back in the bucket, crumble it up real good, stir it up real good, and then put about it'll be about a half cup to fill this box. And you any crop that you are thinking about growing, any if it's vegetables, if it's fruits, or if it's nut, this sheet, soil and media information sheet, also comes with a kit. And on the back, it has all of the different crops listed. And every code that you put on the information sheet, you will get instructions on how to manage that soil for that crop. That means if you might grow blueberries, blueberries is BB. That's a good code.
That's a good one,
BB. You put the BB code down, and I guarantee you, your instructions for growing blueberries in the soil is going to be quite different from vegetable garden, which is G for garden. So you've got a code, and it may be lawn, Bermuda grass. You may have part of it in a lawn. And so you may have 5 or 6 different codes on there. It doesn't cost you any more. So if you remotely might have a chance of growing a certain something there, then be sure you put that code on here.
Those codes are important. They're most important.
And you will assign each of those a sample number or a name, and you want to make sure you fill that out on the box here. You have a sample number, and then when you send this in, or if you send a check under separate cover, sometimes it might be a good idea to do that. Under your return address, make sure you put your sample number on it. If you have an email, you'll get the results back very quickly.
Very quick.
You know, it used to be 6 weeks back in the old days. By the time you sent it, and by the time you got it back in snail mail.
It's come on back now.
But now you get it real quick.
Yeah, Miss Debbie does a great job at the Soil Lab.
Right.
She'll definitely take care of our folks down here in Shelby County.
You're right.
Yeah, that's for
You're
sure.
right. She does a great job. But it's a very important thing to do. Very little effort, not expensive at all. I think what is the cost of a basic soil test is $7. And that'll give you the P and K levels, and it'll also give you the pH.
Right.
And
It actually tell you that on that sheet down toward the bottom of it. If you
right.
see there, Mr. D, it'll tell you.
yeah, water, pH,
Right.
PK, calcium, magnesium, lime, and fertilizer recommendations. $7.
$7.
And
You can't beat that.
You can't. And I guarantee you, if you routinely fertilize an area, it will save you money. The $7 will save you money, because most people, especially in an urban area, tend to over fertilize.
Yes, they do.
And if you get extremely high levels of phosphorus, phosphorus is a extremely stable element, and it's the middle number in the fertilizer. Triple 13 is 13% nitrogen, phosphorus, and potash. But that middle number is very, very stable. And if you put the same thing out every year, I know of people that put out X amount of pounds of 6-12-12 or triple 13 or triple 15 every year, you will eventually get to the point where you have extremely high levels of phosphorus. When you reach that point, the high levels of phosphorus will interfere with the uptake of other nutrients, and your plants will look like they're starving to death. They won't do well, and there's absolutely not a thing you can do about it, except don't fertilize for years and years and years until the phosphorus levels come down to the point where they're not toxic.
Right.
They're actually toxic.
Yeah. Wow.
Same thing with lime and the pH. You know, that could be a problem too if you go the wrong direction with that.
Right, and she's going to definitely give you the line recommendations if you need them.
Right.
You know, she'll tell you how much you need to put down per 1,000 square feet or whatever the case may be. So
If the results confuse you, call Booker or Chris, and they'll help you interpret the results, and they'll break it down in a lawn situation. So many pounds per 1,000 square feet or per 100 square feet. Yeah.
All right, Mr. D, we appreciate that. We'd be more than happy to help.